Next Normal is probably one of my top 5 favorite shows of all time, perhaps.
I think it's really important. It's a really important story because mental illness is something we don't talk about a lot as a society, and it doesn't always, it gets swept under the rug.
Bring that out to the masses and say, hey, this actually does go on, and it does, and to be able to be a part of something that tells this story is really, truly wonderful.
The music is such a great challenge. It's so rewarding. It's hard, but at the end of it, you feel like you've accomplished something with it. And I think you can say that for anybody involved in the show, whether it's the actors or the musicians or even the audience. I think that it's hard. It's a difficult piece for the audience to get through. But once they get through it, it's so rewarding. And I think, from my perspective, I love that aspect of this particular show, and doing it here just adds to that.
Working on this music is just amazing. I mean, the music is just fantastic. It's challenging and it's poignant.
Difficult harmonies, meter changes. A show like this doesn't always come around.
It's a lot of work to learn that score. It's a lot of music. It's start to finish. It's like just nonstop.
And when I walked into that first rehearsal and sat down and played through the first 2 or 3 or 4 charts, it was like it fit like a glove. You could tell right away this was going to be a quality experience with quality people, that we're going to be able to make some incredible music and put together an incredible backdrop for this show.
My experience at the first rehearsal was like playing along with music -1, where you're playing along to a track that's already perfect.
It's really a pleasure. It's so much fun to see the students that were at one time students here, and they're just phenomenal.
It's great to have a mix in the group, in the cast and the crew, between people that I've worked with here, John and Jonah and our sound guy, Jamie, and then working with people that do this for real. And it's so nice to hear their experiences. And I think one of the biggest things is that it's really cool for our kids to get to see that this is an option.
As a teacher, I always find it to be really nourishing to be able to go out and practice what I preach. And having an opportunity to actually do that in my own school district, I think is actually a wonderful thing to be able to do.
I really wanted to step onto the other side of the piano and get the experience that my kids are getting, so I can better learn how to help them in playing a role and contributing in a production.
It's the whole process. It's going through and starting from scratch and doing it how I used to do it when I was a student here, and going right back to the blackboard and kind of taking out the old tools and getting back into it and really coming full circle almost, which is really special because it just reaffirms that I still love it and it's still there.
I just had such fond memories of Joy and and high school and musical memories. So just being here again and working with Joy and working with Jason and working with people who really are just very passionate about what they do, it's just such a joy.
We're all very fortunate, all the alumni that came back, that we were able to have that growing up, and we happen to go into that now in our adult careers. So it means a lot to me to be able to come back here and give back to the community. My parents still live here, and just share a piece of theater that is so outstanding and everyone should know.
To have people want you come back here is a great thing, actually. And to be able to give back in some way, shape, or form is awesome, because, I mean, the theater program when I was here was basically like my life, So whatever I can do for it, I feel honored and grateful and very humbled that Joy Varley asked me to do this.
On this project, since it's Tom Kitt, and Tom Kitt is also an alumni, and since I'm an alumni, and we're coming back, and it's just sort of like bringing everything back together.
It's been amazing, actually, and a lot of fun. It's kind of strange because we've been rehearsing in studios that I auditioned in New York and that I've rehearsed shows in. It's strange to meet Joy and all of my fellow alumni who I went here in school with in the now professional life that I exist in, which feels so far away from here where I started. But it's been almost like a beautiful full circle experience, for all of us to come together and work on something that is so exciting and difficult and fun, but for such a good cause,
Tonight is a celebration of all things Byram Hills High School stage. And I have to tell you, some of you know me in my current position as superintendent of schools. Some of you know me in a previous life as principal, and some of you even know me in a previous life as director of guidance. But I have to tell you, in 25 years at Byram Hills, I have never had a night when I was more proud to be a leader of this school district. This is amazing. It's a special homecoming, of course, for Tom Kitt, who was one of the creators of this wonderful show. And I want to thank, yes. And I want to thank everybody that you just saw in the video who contributed so much time to making this a reality. Jason and Jared, JJ, Mike Cummings and John Cummings, Kat and Lauren, they've given so much time when, you know, by any measure, they really didn't need to. They have their careers, they're successful, and it was so generous of them to come back and put in so many hours. But there are some other alumni I would like to recognize, because as I sat outside and was talking to everybody, it occurred to me that this is really what a homecoming is about. So tonight, I would like to ask all of the members of the former stage, all of our alumni stage, whether you were an actor or a crew member or a lighting member, would you please stand and let's all appreciate these people. This is an amazing program that gives so much happiness and so much meaning to high school students. And everyone who just stood has been a part of that. But they aren't the only ones. How about the parents of alumni? You who sat in the halls, you who, would you please stand? Alumni parents. I know, you made the costumes. You can keep those lights up for a minute. And how about the current beneficiaries? Current students who are involved in our theater program. Would you stand? And I imagine there are a few current theater parents here. Please. This is what's made it work. I also want to thank, I'm not sure I saw them all, but I saw 4 members of our Board of Education here tonight. Leslie Ziner, Ann Tedesco, Vice President Robin Glad, and President Ira Schulman. I want to thank you for the support that you represent, because at a time, I don't know, I'm assuming you all watch what's happening in Albany, the chaos. At a time when school districts are cutting the arts left and right, and in a community, as one parent put it to me tonight, one graduate parent put it to me tonight, a community that, you know, for the most part is about finance and business, this Board of Education has supported arts and supported Joy Varley in her efforts for the arts from A to Z. So I'm very appreciative to them. And you have to indulge me for a moment of politics because I am the superintendent. Or maybe not, but I'm going to say it anyway. So at this time of year, I'm working with the board very diligently on our budget. And you know, when it comes to budgets, people start talking about spreadsheets and variances, budget jargon, and the politics involved. But there's a tendency to forget what school district budgets are really about. And that's, what do they buy? They buy all of this. In our case, great programs that influence kids for their whole lives. And that's an amazing thing. So if you're one of the 900 residents of this school district who actually vote in our budget, thank you. thank you to those 900. And if you're one of the 11,000 who do not vote in the school budget, please consider doing so because it buys all this. And the truth is, in New York at this time, there's much at risk. And if you support us, we need your support in any way that you can express it. It is now my great honor to introduce to you Joy Varley.
That was lovely. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us tonight to show your support for the Byram Hill Stage Program. It is the program I am the most proud of in my career, and it is the program that I love the most from my 36 years of being in education. I believe in public education. Even with all the changes and the mandates and the challenges that exist in the educational climate today, I still believe in public education. I am fortunate to have spent the majority of my career here at Byram Hills in a community that has shown unwavering support for the arts from the beginning of the life of the school district. We live in a community that has come together tonight to celebrate our legacy and endow the future of the Byram Hills Stage Program. Through your presence here and your participation, and I'll say this for the cameras and for all of the members of our community who could not be with us tonight, the generous donations that we've received so far have started our endowment at $24,000. Thank you. And we're going to keep our donation online account going for 10 more days. So spread the word because we're looking to really gift a nice amount to the future of the program so that the legacy that has been for so long will continue for a very long time into the future. I love high school theater. I love it everywhere. I love seeing students enter a high school stage program as curious freshmen and leave as accomplished artists. I love this program because it fosters dreams and it provides a strong foundation to help students find a path to get to their dreams. I love that when we sit here watching our high school shows, we are able to see talent grow and talent emerge, and we can sit and watch the beginning of stardom for so many people. I like that we get to see the first signs of greatness in our own students on their home stage. I love that this is a systemic thing in our program. It happens over and over, year after year, generation after generation. It's something that this community cares about and has always cared about, and the results show. The writers, musicians, composers, conductors, the actors and filmmakers, TV producers, designers, casting agents, all of the people who will be creating the future culture of our nation are standing on a high school stage somewhere today. Let that stage be here. Let our culture in our nation be influenced and shaped by Byram Hills alumni now and in the future. And that brings us to tonight's event, Next to Normal. Tonight we are very honored to present a theater piece that was created by a Byram Hills alumni, our own Tom Kitt. With his collaborator, Tom wrote Next to Normal many, many years ago, and it took a long time to come to the Broadway stage, but once it did, it received a multitude of accolades, including Tony Awards and, of course, the Pulitzer Prize. We are very proud to share Next to Normal this evening, featuring performances by our own faculty, by our alumni, by an alumni parent, and by friends of our stage program. I have wonderful memories of Tom Kitt from his years at HCC and the Byram Hills High School. Throughout all of his student years, right from the beginning, his musical talent was prominent. Whenever an opportunity presented itself, Tom was at the piano, singing, playing, performing, gathering a crowd of people around him, all to hear him perform his music. and he continues to attract crowds today, including this one. Tom just closed his most recent Broadway show, If Then. He has many, many new projects in development and is a very in-demand, extremely busy person. But tonight, we are very lucky to have him here to spend the evening with us. And he's going to kick us off by sharing his thoughts and his experiences developing the property Next to Normal. So please join me in welcoming Tom Kitt to the stage.
This is quite overwhelming, this whole day, to be back here at Barham Hills High School. I've been saying that it feels like a time warp. It feels like no time has gone by, and then it feels like years and years. And the memories are very, very visceral walking around. And one thing that is so heartening is to see the high school thriving. I had the pleasure of taking part in 2 assemblies today, talking about mental health, talking about Next to Normal. The kids were incredibly attentive and polite, and a few of them stopped me to talk to me. I was so happy to see the conversation of mental illness and wellness made so public. Part of the reason we wrote Next to Normal back in the late 90s was because the subject matter didn't feel so public. There definitely felt like there was a stigma, and I'm sure that in some circles there still are issues with sharing thoughts about mental illness and talking about it. But it certainly feels like from the time we started working on Next to Normal that conversation has shifted, and if Next to Normal has played any part in that, that is quite gratifying indeed. Many people have come up to me and said to me that it's very nice of me to come back and be here. And my response is to say thank you, but it was a no-brainer. First and foremost, to support the school, Miss Varley, to take part in this very special evening of a piece that is very dear to me, and also, most importantly, to raise money for this wonderful program. A program that really changed my life. When I was growing up, I started piano lessons at the age of 4, and I was strictly a classical pianist, and then about the time I was 12 or 13, I discovered Billy Joel, and Mozart went a little bye-bye at that point. I used to get calls from my mom from upstairs asking me what I was doing and when was I going to shift back to the other stuff. And I would say in a second, and then I would play New York State of Mind for another hour. And when I got to the high school, all of that was circling around, but pop music certainly, being a singer-songwriter was a dream of mine at that point, in the style of Billy Joel and Elton John and Paul Simon. And theater really was something that I experienced with my family during the weeks at matinees, seeing very family-friendly shows. And when I was a senior, I had already done some things here in the theater and music program. I had sat in the pit playing piano on for Kiss Me Kate. But Miss Varley told me to try out for the musical, and I didn't know what it was. And I said, okay. For some reason, I decided to. And that musical was Into the Woods. And I didn't know really anything about the show. I knew James Lapine and Stephen Sondheim's work in a certain sense, songs that I knew certainly of Stephen Sondheim's. But from the first day we were in rehearsal, it was clear that it was going to be a very special and life-changing experience. Anyone that knows the show knows that it's a deeply human show. It brilliantly takes the fairy tale characters and humanizes them and puts human issues front and center about wishes, about family, about desire, and asking the question of, can you really be happily ever after in your life? And we sat around and talked about this, all of the students, and I just remembered being so moved by the conversations. And then when we got to perform the show, it was just magnificent. And Joy went all out with the orchestra, with the design. And I remembered asking her, remembered asking her about why she chose that particular musical, and she said, I want to keep doing something different. I want to keep stretching. I want to keep, there's no sense in going backwards. And we were all quite riveted by that experience. And I know for me, it was the first time that I experienced in the musical theater a story that wasn't just entertaining, but really making you think and take stock of your life. And I think that the seeds of Next to Normal really began there, because I started to go after more and more theater that told those kinds of stories. And when I met Brian Yorkie, when I was a freshman at Columbia University, and I think I was ready to meet him at that time, we just clicked. And we were writing shows. They were shows about Columbia, but I was able to pour my own feelings and experience into the songs I was writing with him. I'll never forget the show that we did my senior year. I actually had a job offer to go into investment banking. And that was 1996, and it was a good time. The recruiters were coming to campus. They were all over the place. I kind of put my resumes in those envelopes thinking, we'll see what happens. And I got 9 interviews. And one firm actually really liked the fact that I didn't want to do this and wanted to be a musician. They thought that made me a really exciting candidate. So they did a whole sell day for me. I went down and met with all of these executives, and it was really hard to turn down, only in the sense of the stability. But I knew that I wanted to be a musician. I knew that was going to be the wrong path for me. And so the show that Brian and I wrote that spring was about 3 Columbia students, and God and the devil have a bet about whether 4 years at Columbia will make you sell your soul. So I was already working things out in the theater at that point. And I'll never forget a student on our last performance begging someone for a ticket because they hadn't gotten to see it yet. And I just thought, how wonderful that a personal story that I'm telling makes people feel that way. There's just nothing like the theater. So when Brian and I had to think about a 10-minute musical, our first year at the BMI Musical Theater Workshop, and Brian pitched to me a story about mental illness and shock therapy and depression, I said, sure. It's a very commercial idea. And part of the reason we went down that road was because we knew people would look at us with raised eyebrows and wonder whether you can really do a musical about that subject matter. And certainly when we started to present it, there were many people who told us we couldn't and we shouldn't. But there were many people who also told us that we should and we could, and then went further to talk about personal stories in their own lives, family members, friends. And every one of those stories mattered greatly to Brian and I, and really kept us going through what wasn't a continuous, but an 11-year period between that first 10-minute musical and opening night on Broadway. And when you undertake something like that, when you are struggling to pay your bills, well, I think we're always struggling to pay our bills, but when you are trying to make your art happen, you need the support, you need the people who believe in you. And I trace it all the way back to this experience at Byram Hills, the people that took me aside and said, there's something special in what you're doing. Don't stop, and keep trying to find the stories that matter and tell those stories. And it's why it's so important, as has been so eloquently stated this evening, that the theater department continue to flourish, because I feel that art is the great savior. Art is the chance for us to look at our lives, to take stock, to see each other the way we would hope to be seen, to talk about issues that might be scary, and to really feel human. And these kids, and I've worked with so many of them, these kids get so much out of it. And whether they want to be artists or any kinds of professionals, it is such an important experience to live and breathe art with people and to rely on people every night in a live environment. whether you're working behind the scenes or on the stage. And then to talk about that experience and talk about the show and what it means to you. And I really believe that people who are touched by art are more compassionate, more soulful, and gentle people. And if I have any part to play in that, if the work that I do makes people feel that way, that's the greatest gift that I could ever hope to give. So to be able to be here tonight to celebrate this wonderful program, my nephew is here who's coming to Byram Hills next year. And so he's going to get the chance to live and breathe Joy's legacy. And to be able to see Next to Normal performed by these very gracious and selfless individuals who have donated their time to do this in celebration of the art form that I care about, the art form that has changed my life, of course the answer would be, yes, I will be there. Thank you very much.
I just want to take 1 minute and just really thank all of our, Tom Kitt, all of our alumni and our faculty, our current students, our cast and crew, Joy Varley, obviously, for all the time and effort they've put into making this a reality tonight. For the last 2 or 3 years, we've been focusing in on the issues of mental health and emotional wellness, and really looking at 2 things, reducing stigma and raising awareness. And when we had the opportunity to have this performance here tonight, my first question was, do you think we could get it performed for the kids? And we had 2 wonderful performances today. Once again, the generosity of our alumni, of our faculty and staff, it's really unparalleled. And I just want to really thank you all on behalf of myself and all of our current students. Now, I'll come back and speak to you a little bit at the end of the performance, but the business items, and I see some people already glowing that I have to talk to. You need to tell you to turn your cell phones off. All right, off. In between Act 1 and 2, there'll be a 15-minute intermission, and out in the hallways, there'll be complimentary beverages and snacks for you, and you can use the bathrooms. And at the conclusion of tonight's performance, there will be a dessert reception in the cafeteria, which we hope you will all stay for and mingle and have some wonderful conversation, because you're going to see one heck of a performance here tonight. And without any further words from me, I'd like to welcome the cast of Next to Normal. Thank you.